across Texas. The issue is...
I'm Greg Grugan in Houston.
I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas.
And I'm Rudy Koski in Austin, and this is Texas, the issue is.
During a week when President Joe Biden very publicly sought to tighten security on the southern border and raise the standard for migrants seeking to cross into this country and stay, we focus on the coming battle in the Lone Star State for a seat in the U.S. Senate and two issues both divisive and critical to the outcome in November.
We must face the simple truth. To protect America as a land that welcomes immigrants, we must first secure the border and secure it now.
3.5 years deep into his presidency and 154 days from the November election, Joe Biden issued get-tough executive orders aimed at better securing the southern border. It is an issue central to the race for U.S. Senate in the Lone Star State. Congressman and Democratic challenger Colin Allred.
Now, I've also been critical of this administration, and I think they should have acted sooner. I'm glad to see some action, but this is also going to have to be a congressional responsibility. We haven't acted in a comprehensive way in terms of the Congress since the Reagan era. We have to have leaders in place who will actually address this and will find and do the hard work of finding common ground for us to secure the border, to make our immigration system meet the needs of our economy, and to make sure we take care of the folks who are here, particularly dreamers, who are contributing and need to have a pathway out of the shadows. What I've seen from Ted Cruz is someone who wants to talk about the issue, who wants to use it as a campaign issue, but doesn't and will never be a part of actually trying to solve it.
Incumbent Republican Senator Ted Cruz calls Biden's bid to lower illegal crossings an election year ploy.
Yeah, listen, I think Americans, and I think especially Texans, are very aware of what's happening at the southern border. It's a full-on invasion, and the order of magnitude, we've never had anything close. Where is Colin Allred? He's not down on the border saying, isn't this great? Look, human traffickers bringing people in. People are suffering and dying, and when you see it, you can't defend it. It is cruel and it's wrong, and it needs to stop. And so, look, between now and Election Day, do I think the Biden administration is going to play some politics? Do I think they're going to try to decrease the numbers at the border a little bit so they can say, nah, the problem's solved? Probably, but I think their view is that the American voters are gullible. I don't think that's right. I don't think people are stupid.
On the deeply divisive issue of U.S. support for Israel in the war against Hamas, there is substantial separation between the contenders, with Allred promoting a peaceful resolution and eventual creation of a Palestinian state.
And I certainly have had some concerns with the conduct of the war, and what I think we need to find now is a way towards an agreement to end this conflict and to find a pathway forward for Palestinians and for Israelis, where we have a peaceful and independent Palestinian state next to a peaceful Jewish and democratic state in Israel. That has to be the end goal, and the United States has a really important role to play in shaping that outcome. But we have to do it, I think, in a way that it brings this conflict to an end. Hamas will no longer be in power, but that we also offer some kind of pathway forward, some kind of hope that there can be an alternative.
I think this is a battle between good and evil. I think this is a battle between civilization and barbarism.
Senator Cruz is far less committed to conciliation than he is to delivering Israel the weapons needed to eliminate an existential threat emanating from Gaza or anywhere else.
As for me, I strongly and unequivocally support Israel, and I believe the people of Texas do as well. Israel is in the right here. They are trying to kill terrorists who are trying to murder civilians. This war would end tomorrow if Hamas laid down their weapons and stopped fighting. Hamas is not going to. They're going to continue trying to murder innocent civilians as long as those terrorists are still there. Hamas is literally using Palestinian mothers and babies as human shields to protect their terrorists, and they're counting on the global media to take those civilian casualties and use it to attack and demonize Israel. Hamas doesn't just want to murder Israelis, they want to murder Americans as well, and they've done so in vast numbers.
My one-word description, entrenched. Stephen, what's your word?
My word, tightrope.
Okay, Rudy, lay it on me.
Greg, I'm going to go with blitz.
All right, a great deal more to discuss. The Fox Texas Trio will be back on the other side of this break.